and it's great to see everyone here. My name is Vinay, Jain. I'm the Chief Legal Officer at Shake. We are a technology that allows people to create basic legal contracts in a matter of minutes. I want to start with a bit of good news. The good news is that the legal services marketplace is larger than we think it is. And the reason it's larger than we think it is because when we size the market, we only look at the work that attorneys are already doing. But in reality, there are billions of transactions that are taking place every day. I'm just trying to point the clicker in the right direction. Where does it go? Oh, it's right under here. Okay. I work in technology, ladies and gentlemen. So there are billions of agreements that happen every year that lawyers never touch and never see because it's not cost effective to get an attorney involved. We're talking about freelancers, consumers, small businesses, getting business done every day on their own through vendor agreements, various small contracts, bills of sale, promissory notes, etc., etc. It's the opposite of big billion-dollar transactions and bet the company litigation. It's the opposite of big law. It is TinyLaw. Hashtag TinyLaw because it's not official unless it becomes a meme, so please tweet away. So TinyLaw is the name that we've given to the long tail of the legal marketplace. And we think that of all the sectors that are going to be innovated through the use of technology in the legal industry, this is one of the most interesting because it's one of the fastest growing. It's growing fast for a variety of different reasons. One is the amazing rise of the freelance economy. There are currently 42 million independent workers in the United States. That number is going to rise to 60 million in the next 6 years. That's going to be 40% of the US workforce. These are people whose livelihood is governed by short-term frequent contracts. Mobile workforces. People with smartphones now have an entire office in their pocket, and they expect their business tools and their legal tools to be portable as well. And finally, the sharing economy. We are renting our apartments out on Airbnb. We are renting our time out on tools like TaskRabbit. Again, increasingly, people's income is coming from short-term agreements. And so they need tools that will help them with those agreements. Whether they write down those agreements or not, their livelihood is being governed by these agreements. Of course, they don't often write them down because currently the way that the legal services industry is structured, it's not cost effective. Contracts are complicated. They're not accessible to non-lawyers. Legal services are expensive. We do not have the ability, even though these individual transactions in the aggregate are worth a lot of money, because they're not worth very much money to attorneys professionally. At an individual level, the marketplace overlooks them. We are essentially, as lawyers, expensive custom tailors in a marketplace that is crying out for affordable yet stylish off-the-rack clothing. And that is where Shake comes in. Here's the app. You simply select from a series of different agreement types. There are consulting agreements, independent contractor freelance agreements, confidentiality agreements, bills of sale, promissory notes, a few other agreement types. You answer a few questions. The information that you enter gets populated into a template, and you can sign, send, and manage those agreements from the app. The agreements are clear. Anybody can use Shake. The language is legally effective and powerful, but it's understandable by non-attorneys because practically there's not much value in a contract that the parties who sign it don't understand very well. It's also calibrated. There's no need for a 4-paragraph indemnification provision for a $500 transaction, and we recognize that. The agreements of the future and technology that we hope to build are going to be smart. We've just scratched the surface with what we can do. Think about all of the technology that's built into your smartphone, the camera, the microphone, GPS. If the purpose of a contract is to capture a meeting of the minds, why not incorporate video? Why not incorporate multimedia? Why not use the fingerprint sensor to authenticate IDs? We don't have to settle for just being on par with paper contracts. We can actually surpass them. Similarly, agreements can be interactive. What do you do right now with a contract? You write it down on a dead tree, you file it away in a drawer, and you never look at it again unless there's a problem. It's such a shame because contracts contain so much valuable, actionable information. They are the blueprint for a relationship between two parties for days or weeks or even years into the future. By structuring that data, parsing it, digitizing it, we can glean actionable insights from it. And we can send you helpful, timely reminders. We can send you things that will help you actually carry out the terms of your agreement, like automatically sending out invoices or sending out payments. Similarly, we can help contracts become informative. If you've ever practiced transactional law, you know that the most common question you get from your clients is some variation of, am I getting screwed? What are the market terms for this transaction? Well, by aggregating data across thousands of similar transactions, we can start providing some of that information for you. So, in conclusion, the future is exciting, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but I think lawyers should be the ones inventing that future, not the ones trying to catch up to it. So, thank you.
Thanks, Vinay. Is Amanda Brock in the audience? Where I don't see Amanda. Where? Yeah, you are. Come on up, Amanda. Now, we're going to jump across the pond again. And Amanda is a tech lawyer, an open source expert. She's going to tell us, she works with a lot of the incubators in London, and she's going to tell us, what's the title? Eating your own lunch? What are we calling
Dog
it?
food.
Eating your own dog food, yes.
So when Jonathan asked me to come and speak to you, he asked me to share some of my experiences and thoughts as a UK lawyer, European lawyer, I guess, a lawyer who spent 15 years in-house working in companies. And like a lot of young lawyers, when I first went into a company, I was very arrogant. I thought that knowing about the law was all that mattered. And I guess I was a blocker to a number of deals because they weren't quite technically the way I wanted them to be. And I very quickly learned that's not particularly career enhancing if you want to be a successful in-house lawyer. And the way to do it is actually to eat your own dog food. So I now work as a director in a law firm, and we have a dog. We have a beautiful black Labrador in the office called Scout. And when I told the office that's what I was going to talk about, they kind of looked at me and said, you know, kibble, it's not that nice. But actually, while the dog likes to eat kibble and I don't, to have a reasonably successful career as a lawyer and actually feel that you're working with a company in a way that's going to add some value, you really do have to learn to eat your own dog food. And what I mean by that is that you have to learn to integrate into the business. So I've worked in companies where I've been suited and booted because that's what the client does. That's how those companies work. I worked for 5 years for Mark Shuttleworth in Canonical distributing Ubuntu. I wore jeans to work. After my first day, I learned to use IRC and to answer legal questions and find a way of tracking my answers in IRC. I learned how to use Google Docs to do contracts and red lines because that's what the business wanted. I think tools like Shake are absolutely fantastic, but actually you have to go into an organization, whether you're in private practice or whether you're in-house, and you have to understand how they work. You have to bend to what they want to do. That doesn't mean you're not going to give them good legal advice, it's a total given, but you have to think about the kind of way they work. So I haven't had a paper contract that I've kept other than a deed that needed to be kept or an assignment for 6 years. I've worked in a paperless environment because that's what the client wants. They wouldn't give me a filing cabinet, for God's sake. You know, what was I going to do? I had to learn to work with PDFs, digital signatures and scans. So my advice to anybody giving advice to a client, whether that client is your in-house client or your law firm client, is find out how they work, find out what they do, understand their product. If you can use their product, all the better. If you can't use their product, learn to use what they've got. In Canonical, we use Salesforce as our sales tool. So I learned how to adapt Salesforce to make it into a contract management and a document creation system. But I didn't try and reinvent the wheel myself. I went out to other software companies that were using it, asked them what they'd done, found the little shop in California that had modified the software to work for them, and worked with that. So it's a very short talk. It's got 3 key messages for you. Learn to understand your client, work with the client tools, use what they've got, and learn to understand what it is they need and build that in. Now, I guess I've probably got a minute and a half left, Jonathan. I don't know if anybody wants to ask me anything about working in-house, about working with tech companies, but I'm happy to talk about that with you now if you have any questions, and I'm happy to talk to people later.
And is Vinay still in the audience? You're still there. Okay. We may. I was thinking we'd hold questions for after the 3 lightning talks. So hang around. Is there a question specifically for Amanda? No. All right. I'm going to invite Elise.
You said something earlier I'm going to actually argue with you about. You said European lawyers are not entrepreneurial.
I don't think that's true. I work in a boutique law firm with 14 people. I think we have 6 lawyers, 2 patent attorneys, and then half a dozen computer scientists. And we've worked with companies like King.com. I'm at level 250 in Candy Crush because I work with King.com. We worked with people like DeepMind, and we really had to understand what their technology was and what it did, or we couldn't understand the risk that we were building into the contracts, and we would fail. And we'd fail ourselves because the contracts would be bad, but we'd also fail the clients because they would have a terrible IP strategy that wouldn't match their product.
Good. Are there is there a Shake Docs in London or an equally disruptive
Yeah,
legal
there are
platform?
quite a few tools that commoditize legal services, sort of docs-based tools, and it's very easy to, I'm sorry Vinay, but it's quite easy to build your own version of that into your system and commoditize your sales team's work and put balance and checks in there that stop them giving discounts of more than 3% in your own document creation systems. But there are off-the-shelf products, and mainly made by ex-lawyers actually, which is a good thing in as much as you know the risk is taken care of. Bad thing maybe in that they're not as forward-thinking as they could be. We're always encumbered by being lawyers.
Vinay, ShakeLaw, does it abide by European nation-specific laws? Do you have a product for the European community?
We have not designed a product for Europe. We've focused on the United States.
Okay.
It's, John, it is a real problem. It's something that in the open source work I've done, we've really come across, because a lot of the licenses try to be multi-jurisdictional, but they work from the basis of US laws. And then you get into something like French law having particular rights that just doesn't work with. You can't assign copyright in a certain way. So there are a number of European projects, particularly around open source, where we're trying to manage those documents from a European perspective and create open tools that people can then go to. So one project I'm working on now is building an app chooser that will have a background of all the different licensing requirements that you can dig through in the app.
So part of my hope with building bridges between the American legal academic community and the European legal academic community is that we can actually harness law students to to do some of the necessary research to make sure that we can come up with unified processes and platforms that will work across the Atlantic, at least, if not across the globe. So perhaps this is something we'll be talking about down the line. I want to invite Elisa up to the podium. Now, Elisa, I had met her a couple times, but we just chatted a few days ago. We were part of a transatlantic, actually a transglobal almost, legal hackathon in February. There was an outpost in Brooklyn, an outpost in London, and an outpost in San Francisco. And one of the winning projects, at least at the New York iteration of the legal hackathon, was a product called Ghost Drop. I wanted them to call it Snap Judgments, but Ghost Drop was essentially Snapchat for legal documents. So these are, they wouldn't be subject to discovery. You'd see the document and it would disappear.
Can I get a volunteer from the front row to video me? Thank you.
Okay. While she gets her volunteer, I was speaking to Elisa the other day, and she indicated that she's building essentially a more secure Snapchat.
And
So she's
that's
gonna demo
exactly
for it.
what we've done. I'm wondering if there's a way to show my phone on there, or if the slides will just have to do. All right,
Lloyd,
the
can we get her
slides will
phone on
just
there?
have to do.
I doubt it. No.
That's all right. So let's just queue up my presentation.
Yeah, you have a presentation here?
I uploaded it to your file.
I didn't see it. Okay.
All right, well, I'll start the demo. So my name is Alyssa, and I'm the founder of Glimpse, and we have a more secure Snapchat for you. So Glimpse is end-to-end encrypted. I saw that you have Christopher from the ACLU here later today. The ACLU is representing Snowden. Snowden said we need easier to use end-to-end encryption for mainstream regular users, and that's what we've built. Our app looks a lot like Snapchat or Instagram, and we've done that to make it as easy to use as possible. I'm going to take a photo of the audience. Let's see if my phone is very small, but maybe you can see what I'm doing. So we have these two filters. And what happens is if you take a screenshot, it ends up scrambled, and you'll see that if you're able to see my presentation. And so that's ultimately what makes us really different, is we're screenshot proof.
Can you show it on the Internet Society's camera? Put it in.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing it. Put it in front of the camera
Right here? I'll let you do it.
No, just hold it.
Okay. So that's what makes us really different. It's not only that we're encrypted and ephemeral. We need glimpse demo. Yeah, if you click on we need glimpse demo. Yeah, where's the mic? Can you guys hear me? Let's turn it on. You can hear me now? So that's what makes us really different. It's not only that we're encrypted and we're ephemeral, but if you want to send a message and make sure no one else ever sees it, you use the glimpse filter and the person you're sending it to can't take a screenshot. So the threat model is that the recipient won't be your friend later. Okay, great. So I'll run you through this really quickly. Glimpse is ephemeral, it's encrypted. We're marketing ourselves as a sexting app because we want to be mainstream, but then I'm speaking to people like you about our real goal, which is digital rights. And as you can see, if you use our filter overlay, the messages come out scrambled. That's basically it. I promised that I would keep this to about 3 minutes, so I don't want to stay on the stage too long.
So there was a lot of backlash with Snapchat because people were using it convinced that their communication was going to be secure, and then many people found different ways, including screenshots, to actually preserve the information, the photo.
That's exactly right, and that was our inspiration. I loved using Snapchat, but I can't send something that's really private if I don't trust the company holding the data, and if the person on the other end can just take a screenshot. So with Glimpse, it's encrypted, so you're not worried about hackers. With the filter, you're not worried about screenshots, and we delete all the data from our servers. We're really taking care to make sure that we're closing every possible loophole, so your message is really like whispering in your friend's ear.
But do you think that Glimpse actually solves the final problem? Or now do we have a next generation of folks who think, well, Snapchat wasn't secure, but you know what? Glimpse really is secure. I'm going to show the most outrageous stuff by using Glimpse, and then they get in trouble because it's now exposed.
What I like about how we're running the company is our transparency. So if you read our privacy policy, and as lawyers, this might be interesting to you. I had a lot of fun writing it. We're really straightforward about what we do and don't accomplish. So the problem with Snapchat is the discrepancy between what they actually are good at doing and what they're marketing themselves as doing. We're trying to be as transparent as possible about the ways that people can get around our technology. So someone could rig a video camera, for example, and take a video of the message, and we're pretty clear with our users that that can happen. You know, that's pretty elaborate. We're really solving the casual screenshot problem. And we're also open to fixing the app. If you discover holes in our app, we want to fix it.
So a couple questions to you as a young, are you a first-time entrepreneur?
No, I'm 35, I wish.
Okay, so you've had ventures before this.
I have.
With this venture in particular, do you have an exit strategy? Would Snapchat be a good acquirer of your technology?
Snapchat would be the worst acquirer for many, many reasons. And our goal is to remain independent. And we believe that we can do that for a long time. One of my investors, Jain, was CEO of a public company, and he's been grooming me to ring the bell on the NASDAQ, so that's definitely our ideal situation. Our worst case would be, you know, if it looked like staying independent wasn't an option, I would want to come on as like chief privacy officer of an acquiring company. We don't want to get eaten up by Facebook or by Google and then become Facebook or Google.
So I think this is a terrific product. My concern is it easily replicatable? Do you have any patents on anything?
We have a provisional patent on the filter technology. And that was really fun. It turns out that there are a lot of filter tech out there that's been patented that makes your photos look better. We have the only filter that makes your photos much worse.
So are you scared that Snapchat could just take your idea now and run with it and make theirs a more secure Snapchat?
I don't think so. They're not very technically competent. The founders are brilliant. I give Snapchat a great deal of credit, But I don't think that they can implement tech as fast as we can. Our tech team is just so much better, and we're a lot more passionate. They're young. When I talk to VCs and branding partners who've spoken to the founders, they've expressed a lack of interest in working with them. So we have a real advantage because the people who talk to us see that we're very mature in terms of how we do our business relationships.
Okay, so only an iPhone app at this point?
Only what?
Only iPhone at this point?
We're only iPhone. We're about to start fundraising, and we'll use that money to build for Android. If you know great Android devs, we're hiring.
All right, thanks, Elisa.
Yeah, thank you for squeezing me in.
Sure. We may have time for one question for either Elisa, Amanda, or Vinay, if someone's got it. How are we on time? Do we have... We're okay? All right. Question? Yeah.
Anybody see a role for the Bitcoin protocol in these entrepreneurial activities?
So did folks get the question? A role for the Bitcoin protocol in some of these entrepreneurial ventures. Are any of you exploring? Yeah, come on.
Last week in Paris, W3C had a meeting where there was representation from the banks, the merchants, and mostly geeks, looking at equivalents for tokens and keys. So whether it's Bitcoin or it's something else, there will very, very quickly be a move to have a standard and have that kind of financial interaction and new world currency happening around all of these apps.
Are any of you involved in the legal issues surrounding Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? Do you want to share with us what you're doing, or you're keeping it crypto? Yeah? Okay.
I'm not an expert in Bitcoin, but I will say it's not a currency.
Well, in America, it's property, not a currency, correct?
And the idea is, I think that until because you have to keep track. Hi, everyone. Because we have to keep track right now of the value at the time you bought it versus the value of what you're spending it on at any given moment. The mathematics of using it for day-to-day expenses, such as for the services that are being described here, would be too difficult. So until somebody, creative comes up with, something like Glimpses so creative comes up with that, I think it would be difficult to spend on it.
You just use CoinShare.
Any of the other exchanges that guarantee the exchange rate to stay the same that day. Your cash comes in and goes out in whatever currency you want.
Raise your hand if you're a lawyer and you're exploring potential business opportunities in the realm of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. When I speak to my students, I always ask them, in our seminar, we always talk about ways in which the roles that young lawyers can serve in leapfrogging into the profession. And I look at the future of cryptocurrency as one of those great areas where the traditional members of the bar have not yet fully caught on with the opportunities involved in Bitcoin. A lot of us have been pretty negative about Bitcoin and think that it can't survive. But what happens to the next iteration of Bitcoin, the next cryptocurrency? Are there roles? If anyone wants to share their thoughts, what will the roles be for lawyers as we evolve our conception of currency and create new methods of cryptocurrency? Anyone care to take a stab at that?
Yeah, currency is very abstract. Art is a currency. Matchsticks are currency. And I think tech world is way ahead. Forget what the IRS says, with all due respect. I think this gentleman had something that's working, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, a lot of the panels and talks we've got this afternoon, we don't have anything specifically on Bitcoin, but we've got discussions on the concepts of crowdsourcing and the role for lawyers in building crowdsourced platforms, the role for lawyers in the crowdfunding world, and now not specifically on crowdfunding broadly, but on crowdfunding the law. How do we crowdfund litigation? How do we crowdfund legal process? I hope throughout the day all of us start thinking about what are the new technologies and new ventures on the horizon, and what will the role of lawyers be in paving the way for these new ventures. We can't just be naysayers. A lot of the folks at big law down on Wall Street across the river, even in academia, think that equity crowdfunding is a terrible idea. It's never going to catch on. I think a lot of technologists, a lot of entrepreneurs out there see potential gold, potential brass ring down the road. Will the lawyers catch up with that? Will the lawyers be right, the traditional lawyers, in that equity crowdfunding can't actually be functional? Or is there a role for equity crowdfunding, and what will the role be for the next generation of lawyer there? Are we taking a break, or how long a break? We're taking a 15-minute break? Is that cool? We'll have enough time for the next panel? All right, 15-minute break. No food in this room, right?